Joe Rogan seems impressed with Democratic State Representative James Tallarico.
Talarico appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience last week, where Rogan urged the Texas Democrat to run for president. Let's listen.
That's because you need to run for president.
Yeah.
We need someone who's actually a good person.
Well,
because the Democrats have very few candidates that are.
Can I actually push back on that?
Please.
Because we were talking about how politics has become a religion.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the ways it does, is people put all their faith in a politician.
No, but I'm not saying that.
I've seen it with Bernie.
Yes.
People, and I like Bernie a whole lot, but some people treat him as if he's a messianic figure.
Talarico mentioned billionaire donors who own some of America's largest media companies trying to divide political leaders.
Murdochs of the world, the cable news networks, the social media platforms, the Zuckerbergs and Musks. I mean, these platforms are literally tearing us apart by design. And I think there has to be something better than that.
Well, I didn't even know if it's by design, but that's the way that it's the most profitable.
The duo also talked about religious freedom being part of America's foundations and that political leaders need a little humility. Let's watch.
Essential to the founding of this country was religious freedom. And so those Christians understood that once the government starts preaching your religion, starts making decisions about your faith, that doesn't lead anywhere good. So we should be very suspicious of the state usurping the role of pastors and Sunday school teachers. Why would we have the government start to teach kids about or preach a certain religion when we have houses of worship that can do that?
Appearing on Rogan's podcast could boost James Tallarico's credibility among young male voters. Tallarico is apparently considering a bid for Senate in a crowded Democratic primary that includes former Representative Colin Allred. I thought this was worth discussing because, Joe Rogan is now seen as a more Trump-aligned figure, obviously did endorse Trump, still has a mix of heterodox opinions, has criticized some of the Trump policies on immigration and other things, and is still someone who puts on people who are not just standard Republican or standard in any way. And this is one of them. This is a Democratic, more minor political figure in Texas of a religious background. I'll be honest, someone I've never heard of until this weekend, and then suddenly I saw him all over my social media feed because of the Rogan appearance, and then I think because right-wing people were trying to discredit him and being like, oh, here's all the woke things he said. He's not a normal person. Stop thinking he's a normal person just because Joe Rogan likes him. So I thought it was worth discussing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He did well on the Rogan interview by all accounts, and that's obviously one of the reasons why you're seeing him all over your social feed. His prominence prior to this was very much tied to remarks that he made objecting to the Ten Commandments being in Texas schools. And his argument was basically that he takes his Christianity very seriously. I believe he's training to be a pastor, actually, at the moment, in tandem with his political career. But he argues that the most important idea in Christianity is to love thy neighbor as thyself. And his argument is that putting the Ten Commandments in schools would not be an act of love to students who are of other religions or who are atheist or simply non-believers, and that therefore it would make them feel left out, and that's why you shouldn't do it. So he was framing his opposition to the Ten Commandments in schools as sort of fealty to the tenets of Christianity.
Yeah, we need to know more about, put the commandments in school. What does that mean in this? I'm fine with it if it's, you could have a display here as a history of this is a source of law, which I think you can, the Supreme Court has said you can do. Right. Next, alongside Hammurabi's Code and whatever other early sources of law, and from a historical sense, not this is what we are forced to believe.
Right, and I think that this issue was regarding the latter, the sort of raising up of the Ten Commandments as a thing to which fealty should be paid, rather than here's a historical document and here's the founding texts of Islam or Judaism or Buddhism or whatever. So I think that was the issue. On a more general sense, I mean, obviously it is good for Democrats to have people somewhat normal and able to have a free-wheeling conversation with Joe Rogan.
Normal is in, normal is hot.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, there was this whole issue about whether Kamala Harris, who we were speaking about in a previous segment of today's show, should have gone on the Joe Rogan Experience. She didn't. Did that leave people with the impression that she was somehow not trusting herself to have those more freewheeling kinds of conversations? You know, those were valid criticisms, I think. Now, there's a big difference between running for president and being a congressman in Texas who may or may not run for Senate. But nonetheless, good for him to do this.
Yeah, interesting. I'm always, and apparently, I was reading a little bit about the process of how this came together, because I'm like, did this guy just aggressively pitch himself to Rogan's people over and over and over and over again? But apparently, no. Apparently, Rogan saw him talking about, I think, religion in public square, and thought it'd be interesting to have him on, and then invited him to come on. So it worked that way. Because I think Rogan is himself not a, I don't want to say not a religious, but is not for, you know, public forced displays of religion. No, nor am I as a you know, libertarian.
No theocrats here.
No,
which we're glad to see.
But you know, but I agree that religious freedom should be respected. I'm all about, you know, not. I mean, sometimes that gets into policy about not forcing them to bake the cake and all that kind of stuff. I think people should be free to engage in prayer in public schools as long as it is not directed or forced by the authority figures in the school. Sometimes that comes up, you know, what if the soccer team prays before the game? Well, I think it should be fine as long as the coach doesn't say you have to do it, or so, but they can do it if they want to do it. That has come up before, things of that nature. So sometimes religion should neither be banned or discouraged nor compulsory in public school. It should just be like anything else.
Right. Well, I mean, I think I agree with that. I think that perhaps our point of difference is that I sometimes feel there have been certain Supreme Court cases where it seems to me that religious plaintiffs have argued that the fact of being religious or their particular religious beliefs should exempt them from laws that are applicable to everyone else. This came up in relation to the Affordable Care Act and contraception and abortion coverage and all of that.
We definitely disagree on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not a fan of saying, well, I religiously believe this, so therefore I don't have to be covered by the same laws as a secular person does or as a person of different religious beliefs does. I'm not a fan of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just generally don't want to force people to pay for things they don't agree with. It's not really for me, it's almost not a constitutional issue. It's just that, yes, if you don't want to pay for abortion care or something else or something that doesn't align with their views, I would just not make you do that. And it does work.
But hold on. Neither of us would believe, as we were discussing earlier, about paying for Israel's war on Gaza.
Exactly.
But we don't get to exempt our taxes. We can't earmark our tax returns.
Oh, don't threaten me with a good time. I would support that. This would be an argument for doing this. If you could say my tax dollars do not want to be paid for bombs for other countries, I think that would be a positive development. I think if we had more say over how our money was spent, that would be a good thing. And you know, it's not just about nuns not wanting to pay for abortions, which I think is a perfectly valid thing. But this comes up sometimes with what are the Sikh people that carry like ceremonial head garb or daggers or something like that. Forgive me if I'm horribly butchering which religious sect this is or what the practice is, but that comes up that you couldn't have those things in schools, and I would say, and then you could say, based on the logic you just outlined, well, sorry, your religious belief doesn't exempt you from doing this, and I would say, well, I would be fine with it doing that, I guess.
I as you would expect, I would be fine with banning daggers from schools, irrespective of whether someone was claiming the patina of religious tenets for carrying the dagger. No daggers in schools. That's my platform for when I run for office.
What if you chew your Pop-Tart in the shape of a dagger? That's when they really come down and get you. I'm joking, but there have been some ridiculous weapons cases in schools. Obviously, we want to keep dangerous weapons out of schools, but every now and then someone gets expelled because they left like a paintball gun in their truck because they were going to paintball afterwards or something like that. I used to write way back before my career as a TV commentator, when I was just writing about kind of education policies, I came across a lot of these stories, and they would just always outrage people because they were outrageous. And there was really non-ideological. Like someone left fishing gear in their car and parked it at a school, and they get expelled. They get expelled every time. Life ruined, college prospects dead overnight because you just left something that is sort of technically maybe a weapon in your car or your locker or something.
Yeah, but I mean, if guns weren't so widespread, then there wouldn't have to be this hypersensitivity about weapons, and we could be more calm about such things. So I will return to my let's repeal the Second Amendment stance, as well as my no daggers in school stance.
I don't know about that. It's my religious belief that we should leave it in place. We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.